I'll wait for you to start. Oh, there it is. Now we all are going to be on our best behavior. So we're glad to be here today. So let me tell you a bit about how this session will run. As Francesco said, we're going to look at a board. I've got a Miro board, and if you're not familiar with Miro, that's okay. We'll walk you through getting there. And so if you want the maximum experience, what you can do is from your computer, hopefully you're at a computer, have access to one, follow the link I'm about to put in the chat. It'll open up the board where you can look around and you will be able to add sticky notes as we go. Some of the events that I've scheduled, you'll be doing more. Some of them you'll be doing less, but that's what we're going to follow. It is also perfectly okay if you just want to observe and listen. I'm going to be sharing content. I'd love for you to be a part of the conversation and to have questions. And so that'll be available as well. You won't get as full of an experience if you're not in the board and able to look around where you want, but you will still get a lot out of this. I am going to share my screen for the benefit of the recording so that it's not just me talking about what we're all seeing without being able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and share the board. And I will tell you right now, if you've ever been in Miro before, the board actually is on edit mode right now, but most of the items are locked, which means you shouldn't be able to interact with them. I'm also going to share my screen and begin showing you around. I already see people jumping in. I already love the participation. This is going to be so much fun. So welcome. One of the great things about Miro boards is that you can actually pull people to you wherever you are. So whenever I start a new section, I'm going to pull all of you who are watching and engage with this. I'll pull you all to wherever I'm focused. But for right now, I want to go to this amazing graphic where we started that Francesco made, which is Inspector Retrospective, so creative, and gave us our theme for today, which is Inspector Gadget, and why we want to be people who are thoughtful and inspective. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to take the common retrospective, in some ways the lowly retrospective, and we're going to deconstruct it piece by piece. We're going to examine each of those pieces, and I'm hopefully going to give you some great ideas, some experiences that I've had, some recommendations, and even some tools that can help you dig into that a little bit more. Obviously, one of the things you'll see here is that we are using Miro so that we can do this virtually. And that's wonderful, but maybe you don't have access to Miro. That's okay. I will be talking through ways that you can adapt this to if you don't. So I'm going to zoom in right over here. By the way, in Miro, your zoom is very important. So how far you zoom in makes a big difference. If you look at our meeting agenda, you'll see here I've got 3 boxes. I've got what do you want to get out of our time today, right here on the left. I've got our learning objectives. We're going to go intro, retro, phase 1 through 5, and then an outro. And if you can see there, I've got a few minutes. That's my high-level guide for how many minutes we are going to spend on each one of those. And then we'll have topics discussed. If we want to put something there, hey, we discussed this, we're done, we can put it over there just to capture. So this meeting agenda, I would love it if, as you're getting used to the tool, if you want to drop a sticky note over here in the meeting agenda, and you say, well, how do I drop a sticky note? You can either hit the letter N on your keyboard, or over on your left-hand side, there is a button. Look at that, we've already got someone adding one. So you just click that button, you can pick your color, and you can add a sticky note just like this. You can put in your thought. What do you want to get out today? I want to learn something, right? I've just added I want to learn something, and you can drag that sticky note around. And so if you want to put a few things there, that'll help me know what you want so that we can make sure we build this in a way that's engaging for you. Because this is ultimately the test of if today's meeting or any retrospective meeting you have is successful. Are the participants getting out of the meeting what it is they feel like they need? I talk to a lot of people who have retrospectives and go, they're just a waste of time. Oh, it doesn't get us anywhere. We never do anything. It's just, and as soon as I hear that, I know, aha, something is wrong. You're not quite accomplishing the objective of a retrospective. Before I go into that, I love that you're putting sticky notes there. Please feel free to go ahead and do that. I'm also going to draw your attention to another box right below that one, meeting agenda, called session feedback. And the reason I point you this is I would like you to remember where this is and be able to come back to it. It's right by the gadget with the gadget copter, and it says in here. Be able to come back to it and put sticky notes in as we go. Why as we go? If we were in person, I would make sure that each of you had a sticky note pad in front of you. And what I would do is I would say, as you learn something, I want you to write that learning on a sticky note pad so you can take it from here with you. If you had a journal or a little book, you could write it in there. But I want to make sure everyone has a way to capture their learnings. So as you learn something, as you go, that's really cool. As you say, boy, I wouldn't do that again, please come over here to the feedback section and go ahead and make those notes throughout the entire presentation. So as things happen, you can put some of your notes here as you're learning. And any other feedback you have for me as a facilitator, I would love that. As I said, I'm hoping to learn here as well. If you get lost, this start here and in here section, you'll see that there's links on all of these learning objectives: intro, retro overview, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. You can click on that, and that's going to take you over to where you go. Now, I was going to do an activity with us, but because we got a little bit of a late start, I think we're just going to dive in, and I love the engagement that you guys already have. So here's what I'm going to take us up to. This was going to be a game we could play, and you might say, why would you play a game? You will learn when we talk about phase 1. But up here I had a game, and I was going to ask you to pick your favorite of the go-go gadget options. And you might say, what go-go gadget options? Well, there's a video clip over to the left. Don't play it now, but there's a video clip to the left that shows like 20 minutes of Inspector Gadget saying go-go gadget hat, go-go gadget coat, go-go gadget rollerblades, go-go gadget blah, 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 blah. So these can't be moved, but I want to invite you to pick your favorite. Which one's your favorite? Whatever reason. You don't have to have a logical reason. I really liked that one. That was my favorite on the show. This is really cool. Put it over in the my favorite, and we'll affinity map those as we go. So if you have time, you can drop them over there. We won't actually spend, I was going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes on this, but I'm going to jump into my intro. This is something you can do if you want to while I jump into my intro. So I'm going to scroll down here really quickly. Look at the introduction section. And by the way, if you want to explore around, you can see all the sections and what we're going to talk about. A few of the frames are hidden. Those will be revealed as we move forward. So that being said, I love the engagement. I love that people are moving around. I'm going to do the intro and then pause for my first question break. Each time I go through a section, I'll make sure to pause. If you have a question, feel free to jot it down on a sticky note so that we don't forget it. But let's go into our introduction. So first of all, welcome. You're all already very welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I am so happy to be here to be around fellow learners. So getting into the tools, you're already doing that. You guys are in the tools, moving around. I will say to my co-hosts, in case someone joins the meeting late, they won't have the link because Zoom doesn't give you persistent chat of what you missed before. So if someone joins the meeting late and asks for the link, if you wouldn't mind copying and pasting that, that'd be great so they can join us. Our meeting agenda, I've already touched on. Session feedback, I've already explained. There's a link right there you can do to jump back over to session feedback. But let's talk about me. I am not Inspector Gadget, but I love Inspector Gadget. I grew up with Inspector Gadget as part of my childhood, and it made me very happy when we started talking about, and I got to go back and look at artifacts from the Inspector Gadget world. If you remember the show, or if you ever watched it, Inspector Gadget was often clueless, but he got saved by his niece and his very smart dog, Brain, as he was trying to be a secret agent and foil the plans of a group called MAD. And I forget what MAD stood for, but it was an acronym. You can Google it. And he always foiled them. And the bad guy, the Claw, would sit and he would pet a little cat in his lap. And he would always say, "I'll get you, Gadget." So what does it have to do with me? I am a budding Agilist who loves inspecting things. One of the things I think that makes me so drawn to retrospectives is I've gotten to the point where I really, really want to learn. And you might say, well, that's great. Lots of people want to learn. But I want to learn from my mistakes. I want to share with you a quote that my dad told me growing up. He said, "A wise man learns from his own mistakes. A wiser man still the mistakes of others." And so for me, I want to always be learning from what others know and what others have experienced, but also what I know, what I've experienced, which is why the retrospective matters so much to me. So I have here my email, a group that I'm a part of, Coaching Agile Journeys, and my LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. But over here on the right-hand side, I have kind of my journey as an Agilist. So if you rewind the clock about 6 to 7 years, you'll find me at Sabre, a large global company. They manage travel reservations. And while I was there, I got to take a class. We were just talking about Lisa Adkins right before we started. Got to take a class from Lisa Adkins called Coaching Agile Teams. I actually have on the bookshelf behind me a signed copy of this book from her, where she taught me about the partnership between Agile and coaching. And my mind exploded. From that class grew what became Coaching Agile Journeys. It's a virtual webinar that we do once a month. We have speakers come in. From there, I've gotten connected to the Open Leadership Network, some amazing coaches in that space. I started working at AIG, another large global company. I was helping them with a transition. And now I find myself at a company called Retrium, where I am absolutely, if you think about the life journey curve, if you've ever done one of those, the life journey curve, I am at a peak for sure. I am thrilled with where I'm at because my job at Retrium is literally to be a retrospective evangelist. That's what my title is. I'm the director of community and a retrospective evangelist. So when I was talking with Francesca, he's like, can you come talk to us about retrospectives? I said, absolutely. That's my job description. I get to go and encourage people to grow in their retrospectives. So that's why I'm here. A little bit about me. But what are we here to learn? You didn't come here to learn about me. You came here to learn about retrospectives. So I'm going to zoom in down here into our retro overview, and I'll go ahead and pull everybody to me, and I'm going to pause right here. So far, does anybody have any questions about what we've covered so far, or anything that they need help with? If you need admin help, anything like that, I'll just pause for a few seconds before I continue forward. No?
Actually, I got one question.
Love it.
Yeah.
Please.
So my question is, obviously you mentioned Lisa Ken. Can you, in your words, define the difference between agile coaching and professional coaching?
Absolutely, I can. So I would say professional coaching, and I've been certified. Well, okay, I haven't been certified. I've taken the course. I'm getting my hours to become a professional certified coach. What I see the major difference being is that a coach focuses really on the individual. If you were to go to coaches training, ICF coaches training, they would teach you to coach an individual. What I see when I look at agile coaching is I see you're coaching, yes, an individual, but also you're coaching teams, and also you're potentially coaching organizations. So it's really taking tools and skills from coaching an individual one-on-one, and you're expanding them to not just coach one-on-one, but also coach teams and also coach organizations. So it's a lot broader of a context, and the ideas are very similar, but how you do them changes a little bit between individual coaching and agile coaching. I hope that helps.
Can I expand on that actually on the question, Isaac?
Fire away.
Yeah, so I guess how I understand coaching is, you believe that the person that you're coaching has the answers to the questions.
Absolutely.
So in other words, if you're coaching somebody on Agile, you believe that they have enough information to get to the answer that they need. You're there to help them make that leap. So it's not that you're telling them what the answer is, that hopefully they already know what Agile is and they already know the basics, but they need to make that mental connection of how to do it. Would you say that's right?
Absolutely, I would. I would totally agree with that. And actually, again, going back to Lisa Adkins, you'll find a lot of my base theory comes from her. She actually talks about 4 different phases that an Agilist can be in. And so it's a coach, a mentor, a teacher, and a facilitator. And what's great about those 4 phases is that you need to know when to, you can't just go to everyone and say, here, I'm going to help you be agile. If they have no idea, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to be agile? And you go, well, I'll help you be what you think agile is. There is a level of, I need to show you what agile is. There's a level of sharing information with people, but what you don't want to do is say, you must do it like this, because then you get prescriptive and you're actually losing the coaching side of it. You're actually telling people what to do and not helping pull out of them what's inside of them. So there's different phases that a real Agilist needs to be able to move from one to the other. Excellent. All right, so looking at the clock, we are spot on time, by the way. We've captured up our time, so we are moving very well right now through our beginning. So let's jump into our meeting agenda here for our retro overview. So why do retrospectives matter, and what is retrospective success? So I'm going to tell you from my personal view, looking at agile practices, and you've got all the different frameworks. There's a lot of different frameworks. You can do Kanban, you can do Scrum, you can do scaled agile. There's a lot of, you can do XP. There's all kinds of different ways to do agile, as they say. But if you want to step back and look at the agile mindset and what agile really is, for me, personally, retrospectives are the defining characteristics that shows me you have embraced a learning culture. Now, why is that important? Let me step back for a second. I won't get too philosophical. I definitely could. But we live in a changing world, rapidly changing. Tools are changing, environments are changing, people are changing, cultures are changing, technology is changing, the way we communicate is changing. There's so much change going on that what used to work, which was we're going to make a plan and we're going to follow that plan, and that plan at the beginning will be the same as the decided outcome at the end, that no longer makes sense. You can't say, I'm going to plan the next 10 years for this one product and not think that a COVID situation or a country changing its allegiance or a war or some other situation won't change the very fundamental assumptions that that plan is based on. So what an agile mindset does is it adapts to the situation. Instead of saying, I'm going to make a plan and I'm going to follow that plan no matter what, it says, yes, it's good to plan, but I'm going to continually be learning. I'm going to be sensing my environment, and then I am going to apply what I sense, and I'm going to adapt my plan as I go. Why is that important? Because if you're not taking the time to inspect what it is you're doing and then potentially adapt, then you're just going to be getting the same results that you've had up until that point. So when I step back and I look at all the things you can do to be agile, have an agile mindset, the retrospective is the very embodiment of there's something we don't know and we need to take some time to look for it. So when I talk to teams, and I have, that say, we're busy, we have so much code we have to get out by this date, or we have this deadline, or I have this manager, or I'm already working nights and weekends, their argument is, I'm so busy, I don't have time to have a retrospective. Well, unfortunately, you're cutting out the very thing that could help you not be overworked, not be so stressed out, not be in the position that you find yourself in. So it's so critical to have a retrospective. So what's the outcome of a retrospective? And it is continuous improvement. So why do we have retrospectives? We have them because we want to be adapting to our circumstances. And how do we know we're being successful adapting is if we see continuous improvement. Now, does that mean every single iteration that your team works, every retrospective, you'll see this jump in performance and happiness? And maybe not. Because the way we take our actions out of a retrospective is through experiments, right? We take out an experiment, and we'll get into this a little further down. We take out an experiment and we go try something. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But the goal is we want an increase in learning, right? And that increase in learning is an improvement for the team. It allows the team to be better prepared to adapt to whatever comes in the next iteration. So that's what the success of a retrospective would look like. And so what is your role in a retrospective? So I don't know on this group if we have coaches here, if we have scrum masters, if we have product owners, if we just have managers. I'm not sure who else here, but I can tell you this, at a minimum, you need to be an advocate for retrospectives. You need to believe that they matter. And if you're not convinced that they matter, please direct message me on LinkedIn. I would love to have an extended conversation with you about why they matter. But if you believe it, then you want to be a participant, you want to be supporting the effort, and you may be in the position where you're asked to lead one, where you're asked to be the person who actually facilitates a retrospective. So what does that mean? It means that the burden is on you to come prepared to lead the conversation. If the conversation isn't a success, if they're not getting learning, if the team isn't getting learning out of that retrospective, if there's not an incremental improvement, oftentimes the challenge is with the way those meetings are being facilitated. So it's very important that you as a facilitator come prepared. And so let me help you with one of the tools, the primary tool that I use for preparing for retrospective. It's called 5 phases. I'm going to move over here to the right, and we are going to reveal this frame. Boop, there it is. These are the 5 phases. And actually, this does come from Lisa Adkins. The one on the right does. This is the arc of the coaching conversation. These 5 phases right here, there's a really great article. It just happens to come from Retrium. If you Google 5 phases, you can try to find other ones. I didn't pull this one just because I'm from Retrium. This one actually is a pretty great summary of the 5 phases. But Lisa Adkins shares this right here, the arc of the coaching conversation. And what it says is, if you're the person coaching or you're the person leading the team or the retrospective, what you need to do is come in with a plan. And instead of just saying, all right, what do you guys want to talk about? Now, my friends, I've heard that. I have seen a retrospective where I come in, I'm the coach and I'm observing, and the scrum master comes in and goes, what do you guys want to talk about? And the team goes, I don't know. And they go, okay, what can we do to get better? And they go, Nothing comes to mind. Okay. Does anybody have anything we should stop doing? No, I think we're doing the best we can. Okay. Anybody have anything we should continue? I don't know what that means. I mean, keep doing good work. Okay. Well, no insights. We're going to close the retro. Everybody get back to work. Good retro, everyone. See you next week. And I'm sitting in the corner going, what just happened? What just happened there? So let me show you on this one, the arc of the coaching conversation, because we're going to go into these 5 phases here in just a second. Create the environment. What's their agenda? Are my biases showing? That's a self-check. Exploring the topic, narrowing down actions, and committing to action. This is an arc that if you were coaching someone, if you took a coach's training, you would want to lead them through this arc. Why? Because it's your job as a coach, and I would say your job if you're facilitating a retrospective, it's your job to help the other person or people see things from a different angle. Why is that important? Because if they could see it from the view they have now, then they don't need a retrospective. If someone is looking at a problem and they're like, oh, look at that problem right in front of me. If I did this, I would solve it. And then doesn't solve it, then something's wrong, right? They've identified the problem, they identified the solution, and they decided not to do it. That's a problem with not being an engaged, helpful employee, right? What often happens is that very well-meaning people, I want the company to succeed, I want to do a good job, I want to be successful in my career. They feel, if you go into a retro and say, what can we do to get better? They go, I don't really know. If I knew, I'd come in here with a list of 5 things, but I don't really know what we need to do to get better. So in the arc, you want to take them on a discovery journey. The goal being to see things differently than they've looked at them before. So I'm going to go back over to our section over here, over to the left, and look back. I'm going to try to address, as we talk about these retrospective techniques, I'm going to try to address whether or not you can do these remotely, or if they work better in person, or ways that you can adapt them between the two, because I believe there will come a point where we will get to be in person again. So I want to make sure you have the tools for both. But then also I want to talk about small versus scale. Some of these things we discuss work a lot better in small teams, in which you'll want to do a breakout. Some of what we're going to practice here in the Zoom call today. Sometimes you have a lot of people, you have a giant retrospective, you have a huge topic, and so you've got to do it at scale. How do you do retrospectives at scale? As you can imagine, we have on this call 29 people. Imagine if we had 500 people. Imagine how full this Miro board would be with arrows going everywhere and people clicking and sticky notes flying. It could actually get very chaotic. I'll tell you, I have a lean coffee. It's a certain type of meeting event. I run this lean coffee and I've been running it for about 6 months. I run it monthly. And so far we've had about 9 people, about 8 people, about 10. The other day we had 16. And I'll tell you, the lean coffee started having problems. People wanted to talk and couldn't. People were talking over each other. People didn't get to add their input. And I thought to myself, it's time to scale. So as we talk about each of these techniques, I want to make sure that I cover small versus scale and remote versus in person. So I've got these little icons on each of these things we're going to talk about so that I can remember to address them. So, all right, that is our retro overview. We are right now 30 minutes in. I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions before I move us on to the next one. Any questions so far on the content that I have covered?
Yes, Isaac, an important one.
Please.
How do you manage to breathe?
Well, you know, trumpet players have this thing called circular breathing, where they just can breathe in while they're blowing on their trumpet somehow. I think I just tried to do that.
Wow, wow.
Great question.
Well, also drinking. Well done.
Right. Well, also drinking. Yes, it's a carnival trick that I do. I'll tell you the trick though is work with kids. I do a lot of work with kids, and if you leave a gap for kids, you lose control. So I like to talk fast to keep their attention. If I am talking too fast to understand, I apologize. I have a lot of content I want to get through today. So if it's too fast, you can go back and watch the recording and just slow me down. You can just slow it down on YouTube so that I sound slower. But normally I talk pretty fast. So let's talk about these phases, these retrospective phases. So phase number 1, set the stage. Now, before I jump into phase number 1, the point of this is to help you when you are going to be involved in facilitating or helping lead a retrospective. If you're just a participant, if you just go and sit in the retrospectives, the best you can do is to suggest to the person leading it, hey, I have some ideas for you that I learned from this webinar. Would you maybe listen to some of these ideas? So you can take notes and share it with the facilitator, but I'm assuming you have the ability to prepare the retrospective, and I want to give you some tools to be as effective as possible. Now, this is not comprehensive. There are thousands more tools and ideas and tips and tricks out there. I just want to give you what I consider to be some of the better ones and enable you to go take something and go practice it tomorrow if you have a retrospective tomorrow. So set the stage. What's happening in set the stage? People are walking into the room. You're joining the Zoom call. People are arriving. This first step, create the environment, is so critical. And why is that? Because I don't know about you, but I've been in so many Zoom meetings. I go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. Some of them talk business. Some of them talk, what are our plans for the future? Some of them talk, what am I doing in the next 30 minutes? Some of them are like this, a presentation. And I'm in this business mode. Boom, 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 boom. If you bring that mindset into a retrospective, what are you going to get? All right, we got to be efficient. Let's be really efficient. Let's get our questions out there. Let's get our answers out there. Let's do a 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there. And it becomes a business meeting, which, while there's nothing wrong with that, you're going to lose out on a significant amount of value. Why? Because we're people. We're all individuals. Your team is made up of people. It really matters how that person thinks and how they feel and where their emotional energy is. If you have a room of people who just spent the last 24 hours getting a deployment out the door and they haven't slept and they're coming into a retrospective, it doesn't matter how energetic you are. It doesn't matter if I bring pom-poms and I'm jumping up and down and I'm excited. They're not going to be because they're tired. So you create the environment at the beginning of a meeting on purpose, intentionally. And what kind of environment are you trying to create? You're trying to create a place where people can come in, they want to feel safe, they need to feel comfortable, and they need to feel like they matter. If you treat the people coming to your retrospective like you're just there to do brain surgery and extract valuable ideas from their brain so that you can take them and put them on your impediments wall and then you can go do other work, people aren't going to feel that value. The meeting is there for the team. The meeting is there to help them uncover ways they can improve and to make a plan for implementing those. So you've got to set that stage. So how do I like to do it? I like to do it by breaking the mindset that most people come into a retrospective with. It's that day-to-day, meeting to meeting, go, 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 got to get it done. I'm on the clock. I want people to relax. So what I often do and what I encourage others to do is catch them off guard. Now, a lot of people say, hey, that's just soft stuff. Like you're getting into touchy-feely and you're doing, huh? Well, I want to throw people off a little bit. So let's talk about one word. One word, I will reveal this. Where's the button? There's the button. One word is a great idea to just kind of get people talking. So maybe you have a team that already talks, everybody's all friends, they have great camaraderie, and that's great. This should be really fun. But maybe you have a team where some people talk, some people dominate the conversation, some people never say anything, some people don't trust others. This is a great way to bring everybody in and just have them start talking. So I'm going to actually ask you this question as participants on this call. Pick one word, put it on a sticky note, put it in this box, pick one word to describe your last iteration. Maybe you do every 2 weeks, maybe you do monthly, maybe you do quarterly, it doesn't matter. I want you to pick one word, and you can hyphenate, but you can't pick a big success, right? That's not one word to describe your last iteration. And so I want you to throw a few in here, and I'll tell you how you do this in person. Let's talk about in person here. In person it's incredible what you can do in person, right? Because you just need a sticky note pad and you get your team in there and you can say to them, everybody write down on the sticky note one word that describes you. And then you can have them come put the sticky notes on a whiteboard. You can have them share that word. You don't have to dig into it. You can collect them anonymously depending on the safety level and you can read them out. But it's just the team having the opportunity to express themselves. And what it does, I guarantee you, they didn't walk into their last budget planning meeting and get asked a question, give me one word to describe your last budget session. Like, that's not a game that we play in budget setting meetings, right? This is a little bit of a game. It's a little bit of fun. And so it encourages people to go, oh, what? I'm doing something different here. So I see some words coming in. I see successful. I see stressful. I see worrisome. One thing you can do, and we have an exercise later on, but one thing you can do is you could group these by maybe some of the positive words, some of the negative. You do want to make sure that no one feels judged when you're doing this. And what do I mean by that? For example, imagine this is a retrospective and I'm reading them off. All right, guys, how did we do last iteration? I see successful. That's the right attitude. This way to go. I see inspiring. What a great team we are. Oh, but then I see stressful. Who wrote stressful? What are you guys talking about? Not stressed. We have plenty of time. If we're stressed, it's because you're slacking. You're not taking. Worrisome. That's terrible. I'm not worried. I'm not worried. My boss isn't worried. Why are you putting that out there? That is not the way to create safety. What you want to do is recognize that whatever someone put on this sticky note is an accurate reflection of how they're feeling, if they feel safe, to be honest. In some cultures, you may do work on safety first, and you'll know that by these answers. If you see some raw answers, that's good. It's a sign that your people feel comfortable, even if it's anonymous, sharing how they're actually feeling. And so you see some positives and negative. There is nothing wrong with seeing negative or positive. This is merely to help the team get into a different headspace. It's helping them adapt their way of thinking. Now, let's talk about these icons up at the top. So first of all, remote. Can you do this remote? Absolutely, you can do this remote. You can do this remote by using a tool like Miro and many others, or I've got down here Slido. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of Slido, but it's something that speakers use at sessions. You can use it to basically poll your audience really quickly. And what's great in Slido is for free. You can set up a free account. In that free account, you can run a word cloud. And so you can ask this very question in a word cloud, and people can add their answers to it. Let me see if I unlock this. If we click on Slido here, let me actually open this up so you can see it. And you can actually go into it if you want. Click off of it. Here, click over here. Click over here. Wait, this is a link. Why is it not linking? Well, save as frame, save a template. It's supposed to be a link, but it's not linking. Miro's doing something amazing. So what I did is I set up a Slido, and I'll get it up on this other screen over here. I set up a Slido that'll show you an example of this. And so what do? You set this up as a question, as a poll. People jump in and they put in their one word, and then a word cloud forms. And if you have, let's talk scale. If you have a scaled group, let's say we had 500 people on this call. Slido would work great with 500 people on this call. Let me bring my tab over. I've got it pulled up now. Thanks, Miro, for not working. Let's see. Here is Inspector Retro. This is the Slido I set up. Again, this is free. I have a free account. And so it can be used for Q&A, but I've got this live poll right here, a word cloud poll. So if I wanted to share, I'm going to share a link with participants. Let me actually go back over here. I don't know why this didn't stay as a link. I'm just going to paste the link into Miro. Those of you who are following along in Miro, here is a link. You can click on that and hit the up arrow. It'll take you into the poll. And all the poll is one question. I'm going to go into present mode over here. It's one question that says, how do you think, give me one word to describe the last iteration, right? And so what'll happen is if you're remote, and I had 500 people, then as people put in words, you would see this counter go up and you would see a literal word cloud appearing. One person said 100%, one person said tiring. What's great here, totally anonymous. You're not having John said tiring, Tim said 100%. So as words come in, you can calculate these. These are great if you're doing a large session and you just need to quickly poll the audience. They don't only do word clouds, they also do poll questions if you want to do star, multiple choice, and you can see the results tick in real time. So this is actually really a great way to do scaled and remote versions of the one word. Again, don't be judgmental. Don't be, oh, somebody put that in there. Why'd they put in there? Just let it come in, and this is just a way of happily engaging with the team. By the way, if the link didn't work, you could say to them, they can go to slido.com and put in the number. You can customize that. I believe you get 3 free questions, 3 free poll questions with the free account. And so I could export this and I could capture it somewhere to say, hey, look here, this is what we did for our word cloud. So that is a great tool. Slido, sli.do is the way that you get to them to do it if you wanted to do it at scale. So that's a scale way. In person, I would just use sticky notes, and remotely, use whatever tool you have available. Slido's great. I could also use any shared a Google Doc, or if you have a Miro or a mural board, you could also use that. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Let me double check that I should go to clean language next. Yes, clean language. Let's talk about clean language. Clean language, by the way, is an amazing, if you want to learn a really cool way of talking to people, go study clean language. I've got a link down here in the bottom corner, which is also not working. Fantastic. It dropped all my links. That's okay. Google clean language. It's cleanlanguage.co.uk. One of the ideas behind clean language is sometimes we as coaches or as facilitators, we inject our own biases into the conversation. So I'm mad. I just had a fight with my manager, and then I just got told my pay is getting cut in half, and then I got told that I didn't get the promotion I wanted. So I'm mad, and I come into the retro to facilitate, and I'm like, let's talk about things that are just terrible. And all of a sudden, I'm adding my influence into and onto the team. So one of the things clean language says is allow the people that you're coaching to create their own metaphor and support that metaphor creation. And through that metaphor, allow them to express themselves without you telling them or priming them for what they need to say. So one of the ways you can do that is, I love this question. It's very similar to the last one, but the team comes in, they all sit down or they all log into Zoom. You say, hey guys, we're going to do this to set the stage. If the last iteration was and you can pick a book, a movie genre, a vehicle, a writing instrument, a place on earth, a living quarters, a GIF, a board game. If it was one of those, what would it be? So my personal favorite is a vehicle. So we're going to play this game here. So if your last iteration was a vehicle, what kind of vehicle would it be? And I might help them by saying it can be like a car, it could be like a boat, it could be like a plane. It could be any variety of those. It can be very specific, a model, whatever. It could be a bicycle, it could be roller skates, anything that helps you move around, anything you consider a vehicle, motor or non-motor. What would the vehicle be for your last iteration? And then you step back and allow them to scratch their heads and go, I don't know. So what you're asking them to do here is create a metaphor. You're asking them to look at what happened in their mind's eye and then say, that was like what kind of vehicle? And go ahead and do this right now. Go ahead and create a sticky note. I know you guys just said your one word on the left-hand side, but think about your last iteration. And if it was a vehicle, what kind of vehicle would it be? Throw it out here. Your last iteration was like a what? Let me think about my last iteration. I'll participate in this with you. My last iteration was like a, have to think about this. And there needs to be a little reason behind it. And what I love is you can even follow up and say, this is interesting. Why would you say that? But ask them to create this metaphor picture. So mine was, I'm just going to say speedboat, right? You can make it more fun if you want them to do pictures. The goal of this is not to be super long and drawn out, but the goal is to give you a quick check-in operation that allows the people to step back from their work and say, what is my work like right now? What is it like? Oh, I love it. We got aircraft carrier, we have Love Bug, we have speedboat, we have city bus. Love Bug splitting in two. And so this is great because these actually can help you again get the team in a different mindset than that budget meeting or that manager's meeting or that code review. It gets them into a mindset of, we're doing something different here. We are not doing the same thing that we did before. So clean language is a great way, and there's so many ways you can do this. I forgot to put one on here, weather pattern. You've probably seen this on some tools. If the last iteration was a weather pattern, what weather pattern would it be, right? You can also throw that out there. I heard someone trying to say something, or was that just a mute thing? Oh, I see a hand. Yeah, go ahead, Noam.
Hey, I have a question. I'm Noam from Israel. I want to ask, I love the idea of setting the climate to be more free and by games like that.
Yes, yes.
But I fear that my team would accept it in a very cynical way. So I wonder if you have any suggestion how to bring it in a way that it would be accepted.
I totally get you. I totally get you, and I've seen that. And the reason I've seen that, and I think the reason that people most often are cynical, is because in our brains, we compartmentalize, right? And this is work, and then this is home. And so in our brains, we have Hard work is I come to work, I use my brain, I figure stuff out, and I make money. And then we go home and we talk with our family, we tell stories to our kids, we play games, we play Pictionary with the neighbors, right? We have fun in life there, but at work, we're here to work. We're not here to play and have fun. And so a lot of times, the reason I've seen most teams have a problem with activities like this is that they feel that it's a waste of time, right? There is no tangible dollar value to me sitting around and calling the last iteration an aircraft carrier. Therefore, we shouldn't be doing it at work. It's wasteful. And so what I would do is I would start by helping the team understand the why of a retrospective and even tell them what you're doing. Say, hey team, so a retrospective is supposed to be us reflecting, not just on work, but on ourselves as a team. And one of the things we do as people is we tend to look at everything as solving a problem, but I'm trying to help you change your mindset a bit to look at this from a different way. And if they say, why are you doing that? Why are you changing the way I'm looking at my problems? I would simply answer and say, that's part of my role as a facilitator in this retrospective, is to help you change your viewpoint just a little bit from here to here so you can see opportunities for growth. You're literally helping them. Imagine they're looking at one view of, let's just say a large tanker on the road, right? There's this large tanker driving down the road and they're looking at it from behind. You're helping them turn and look at it from the side. And that's how I would explain to them what you're doing here. You're enabling to have a different point of view. And so if they're skeptical or cynical or this is silly or this is a waste of time, acknowledge that and say, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I believe, and I know, I can tell you from lots of experience, I know the benefit of a team practicing some of these things is way higher than the cost of the time it takes to work through these exercises. So while it's not traditional, when we think about work, this is not a traditional approach to a work meeting. It's actually going to yield a higher return than if you came in and said, I have a spreadsheet, we're going to look at that spreadsheet and we're going to do 3 steps and then we're out of here, right? So I would talk with your team and help them understand the goal of a retrospective and how you're helping bring that goal apart or around by doing these activities. Does that help? You're in a tough spot. I know it's hard to sell a team on something different.
Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge, but I liked your answer. I'm gonna try it.
Good. Good. And hey, that's all we can do is run experiments and try it. And that's actually, if you ever encounter heavy resistance to any ideas that you're trying to implement for Agile, try this technique. Say, okay, team, this is an experiment. Try it with me for one retrospective, and then we will retrospect on that experience. Like use clean language. Tell them, let me try it one time. We're going to do this clean language exercise. And at the end of the retrospective or next retrospective, we'll look at that and say, hey, remember we did that clean language thing? Did you see that there could be some value to it? Or do you really think it's just garbage and we shouldn't do it anymore? And like include them in that discovery process, but ask for an experiment. Can we do an experiment to try this? And you might have to try a couple of different versions before you find one, but I'm telling you, you're going to find one and your team, it's going to resonate with them. And pretty soon they're going to say, why aren't we doing our thing? We need to start. Give us the cool question of the day or whatever, because I found teams really like it once they give it a try. So thank you for that question. That's a great question. Let me talk really quickly to remote. If you're remote, again, just like the last question, you want to do this using some kind of a tool. If you're in person, sticky notes work great. Have them write their answer on a sticky note, put it on a board. If you're doing it in a small group, this is very easy. I would actually dive in a little bit. If you've got 5 to 10 people, ask them about their answers. Boy, board game, Catan. I love playing Catan. Tell me about that. Help me understand the why. You obviously can't do that in a scaled environment. What you can do is use breakout rooms to have people go discuss their individual answers. So what I would do if I had 500 people on this call and we needed to do this game, what I would do is I would say, we are going to each person get a sticky note in front of you, write down your answer. Don't put it in a tool, write down your answer in front of you. And now I'm going to send you into groups of 3, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to discuss your last iteration. And you might say, well, wait a second, you as the leader aren't getting to see it all. Don't you need to monitor what people's answers are and provide context? And the answer is no. What's important is for the team to get in the right headspace. not for you as a facilitator to check the box. Every person gave a right answer. There were no wrong answers. There is no right or wrong here. The goal is to help the team prepare for what you're about to do. So if they do it amongst themselves, you don't have to be in every breakout room and see all 500 of them do it. You just have to facilitate it. So you would tell everybody write down your, if it was like a vehicle, if it was like a weather condition, I'm going to throw you into breakout rooms. If we had 600 people, you would do 200 breakout rooms, right? Yes, 200 breakout rooms. Send them out into breakout rooms, let them talk amongst themselves or whatever your tool can handle. If you don't have a tool that does breakout rooms, it is really hard to do scaled events like this. Very hard. So, okay, we got to move on. I'm looking at the clock. We got to fly. I'm having so much fun with these. All right, we'll do one more. We'll drop, well, the icebreaker is actually very easy. Let's talk about constellations. Constellations, and we don't have to play it, but I want to show it to you. Constellations is something you got to do in person. It is an in-person activity where you take a object. I'll take my water. You take your object, you put it on the ground, and you have everyone stand in a circle. And then you say, I'm going to make a statement. And then if you really agree with that statement, you stand right next to the item. If you kind of agree, you move a little bit further back, and then further back and further back. If you really don't agree, you move way far away. And so it's really great in person. How can you do it virtually? Well, one way in Miro, like we're here, I'm actually going to unlock this for a second. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a copy of this. What I'm going to do is I would enable people to put their answers in the middle, and I'm going to say, I like details, right? So that is my prompt. I like details. I'm going to put that in the middle. And what I'm going to say is, I've done this before where people made sticky notes for their own name. I'm not going to have you do that. I'm going to have you hover your mouse. If you really like details, hover your mouse over the sticky note. If you're not a detail person, move further out to the outside. If you have people who have accounts in Miro, you can actually see names, right? So a lot of you are guests, which is fine, but you can actually see where people are. What I would do if you were facilitating this, and I'm telling you, I did this 2 weeks ago with a team, I had them each make a sticky note with their name on it, and they put their sticky note where they were in the circle. And then you move that prompt off to the side, and then you grab your next prompt. I work best alone. You put that in the middle, and you have people move in. What are you doing when you do this? You're breaking the normal meeting format because you're having some kind of interaction, and you're asking people to think outside of business. They're no longer thinking, what about this business? What about it? You're actually opening them up to being able to have a conversation, not traditionally business focused, okay? I've got to move on for time's sake. I'm going to unhide this last one. This is just a link to a really great tool I just found called icebreaker.range.co. It's a great tool. You can click on it. It gives you icebreakers for whatever level of maturity your team is at. You can actually click through them, and it gives you icebreakers. You can just ask your team. It's a lot of fun. But we're finished with Set the Stage. I'm going to move on to the next phase, but I want to pause for any questions on Set the Stage. Anybody have any questions about setting the stage before we move forward? Amazing. All right. You guys are doing good. I'm glad you're hanging in with me. Thank you so much. Again, any comments or feedback, feel free to put them over there. Any questions, you can make a sticky note and put a sticky note wherever you want. If you have a question or whatever, we're going to keep moving forward. Phase 2, gather data. So your team has come in, you've set the stage. They've broken out of the corporate mindset. They are now ready to think differently. And so now you actually have to say, what are we going to talk about? You actually have to help them find their topic. So let's talk about, what do we talk about? Don't just come in and say, what are we going to talk about, guys? Right? You've got to define the scope. Why is that? Because you don't want the team talking about dinner they had yesterday. You can do that for Set the Stage, but when you're trying to gather data, now you're looking to understand how the team can get better. You don't want the team to get better at bringing their lunch to work. Maybe you do. I could see a scenario you would, but generally speaking, there are some things outside of what you're trying to talk about. Yeah, a good example, maybe you don't want to focus on, we should walk to work instead of drive our cars. Maybe there's a case for that. But in your retrospective, your goal is to help the team improve at doing the work that they're doing for the company. So you want to define the scope, and don't get lost. Don't let the team wander, and don't let it turn into a gripe session. There's actually a whole lot of discussion and a lot of great blogs on how to manage gripe sessions. Don't worry about it. Just don't let the team spend their whole time, this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad. And then when your time's up, everybody leave the retrospective just upset because everything is bad. So don't get lost in that. Allow anonymity, especially if safety is low. You want to make sure that people feel comfortable sharing their insights. One of the reasons you don't want a manager in your retrospective is if someone says, my pay is terrible, or if someone says, my boss told me to do this bit of work that I shouldn't have had to do. They're not going to say that if the manager or the boss or someone who will go squeal to them is standing in the room, right? They don't have safety. And so you need to allow anonymity, because otherwise things might not come to the surface. And let me actually give you a story that helps explain this. I got a question about a retrospective where someone said, we had a retrospective and I did an anonymous, let's gather things we want to talk about. And someone put in something inappropriate. They put in a statement, and they didn't even tell me what the statement was. They put it on a sticky note, and that anonymity allowed them to, I forget what they said, if it was a curse word or if it was something they shouldn't have said, but they said something inappropriate. And so the person was asking the question, how do I stop that? How do I keep people from saying bad things? Here's the deal. The goal here is actually to uncover where the team needs to work to get better. If you have one person on the team who feels comfortable saying inappropriate things in a retrospective, it's better you find that out and you start working to improve it in a retrospective than when they do it in a piece of code and a web page pops up to a client that shows something inappropriate. Right? You want to discover these things in a retro in a safer place. So allow anonymity, allow people to be themselves, because if there's a problem lurking under the surface, you want them to feel comfortable enough to share what that problem is so that you as a team can address it. Okay, you're not trying to trap people, but we're trying to help people. And if they're so upset that they're cursing or doing something that's not professional for the team, you want to find out and address it as early and as safely as possible. So you want to do creative probes. You want to ask the team to think about areas they should talk, and I'm going to introduce a couple of ways they can do that, but you want to introduce creative probes along the way so that they can think differently than they maybe thought before. So how did we want to act? That's really the question. If we look back at the last sprint and bad things happened or things that we didn't want to happen, how did we want to act? And then you're going to hold them accountable in future retrospectives. Did we act that way? If the team says, we always want to be nice to our customers. When the customer calls, we always want to answer and say hello on the phone and be very friendly. That's great. So capture that in a future retrospective. Say, hey guys, did we say hello every time we answer the phone in a friendly way, right? You want to make sure that the team is finding things that they can track and measure going forward. And lastly, I'll say, don't get stuck in a rut. Sometimes you can go down a rabbit hole and down a rabbit hole and down a rabbit hole. Don't get lost in what you're doing. And these last ones down here, these are the typical, I'm sure many of you have heard of these: mad, sad, glad, start, stop, continue, what went well, what didn't go well. These are typical retrospective questions, and they're good questions, but don't use them over and 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 over again. Give the team something new, because if you're showing them one viewpoint, right? Keep in mind, they look at the world through their viewpoint. If they come into your retrospective, and every retrospective you ask mad, sad, glad, that's another viewpoint. That's valuable, but that's two viewpoints. If you always use mad, sad, glad, and they always see the world the way they see the world, you're showing them two viewpoints. Great coaches can take a team through so many different viewpoints at every retrospective. They're going, I never thought about it like that. If you're seeing that response, you're helping the team see the world in a different way. So don't get stuck in a rut. These are good ones to start with, but don't do them all the time. Also, I see down there could also be the 3 L's. I love the 3 L's. That's another great model, but again, don't use those all the time. So there's a lot of good models there. Don't get stuck on them. Let me show you a couple over here, and I'm going to show them to you. We won't take the time to actually do them. By the way, let me pause. That's why I put these icons in here. Remote. Can you do this remote? Absolutely. For anonymity, you need the right tools, and you've got to be ready to facilitate the meeting and make sure that your people are engaged in the conversation. If you set the stage correctly, they should be involved and they should be tracking with you. If you have cameras on, you can see heads nodding and people looking at you, not people playing with their phones, right? So remote, you need the right tools to facilitate that. In person, it's a bit easier to see if you're getting success in the room. In small groups, this is so easy, right? You can look at each person in the eye, you can ask each person to give feedback. When you're scaled, you have to have breakouts. You have to actually divide the people down because you can't individually hear from each person. So what you do, there's actually a liberating structure, and you can Google liberating structures. There's a liberating structure that's like 2 people meet and talk, and then 4 people meet and talk, and then 8 people, and then those 8 people can report up. You can do ways of bubbling up ideas from small units, but I don't have time to go into those for right now. Let's talk about lean coffee. If you have an average size team, let's say 10, a little less than 10, you're 2 pizza teams, right? You have a small team, lean coffee is amazing. It is a way of walking through a meeting. It's a very time-bound format, and it enables you to get some really good information. What should we talk about? And then talk about the things that are most important. The way it works, you gather topics, you have people promote their topics. Hey, here's what I want to talk about, and here's why. And so then after they've promoted them, you have voting. Everybody votes on what topics they most want to talk about. And then you have the topics get pulled in. You set a timer. We're going to talk for 5 minutes on this. And then when the timer's up, people vote, keep talking, stop talking. Based on that vote, you either extend another couple minutes or you end that topic, and then you move on to the next one. And you just repeat the pull, discuss cycle until the time is up for your meeting. I actually have, just because I love lean coffee, really great tool that I use. It is $10 a month, but it's called Lean Coffee Table. I will share this link, board guest link. I will put it into the Miro. I tried to put it there, but I think when I locked it, again, my URLs aren't working. So it is here. Let me zoom in, make it a bit bigger. What Lean Coffee Table enables you to do is that whole cycle I just gave you, it enables you to do it so easily. Every month when I facilitate Lean Coffee, I facilitate it inside of this tool. Again, it's $10 a month. For me, $10 a month is well worth it. The way it works is you add your topics here. So you give your team that board guest link. They come in, you would see them over here on the right. And what they would do is add topics. I want more ice cream, right? So they add in all their topics. That's great. Once people have added their topics, you would then say, okay, team, now we're going to vote. And so people would vote. And so you can see they can click on the vote button here. So if someone wants to talk about, I need training, someone wants to talk about the servers keep shutting down, and someone wants to talk about, I need more ice cream. You can change the number of votes. You can see how many votes they have left. Then you go into your start discussion mode. Boom, there's the ones to discuss. You pull it over, you pull it over. You say how long you want to talk for. I'll say 1 minute. They can talk about it for 1 minute. The timer runs down. At the end, it goes ding, ding, ding. You move that topic over. You grab the next topic. That's Lean Coffee in a nutshell. So how you do it remotely is very easy. If you are in person, it's the exact same thing, but you use sticky notes. The key tool on Lean Coffee is you want it to be very time bound. If you let things get sloppy, you can lose focus and you can go down rabbit holes you should not be going down. So Lean Coffee Table is a great tool to do it remotely, in person. Mark Kilby has a great blog right here on doing a virtual Lean Coffee. It also explains regular Lean Coffee. If you want more information, you can get it there. In small groups, this works great. It does not work in large groups. And I will tell you from personal experience, at about 16 people, Lean Coffee starts to break. It starts to become unstable because people want to talk, but in the small time window you have, there's not enough time for everyone to get in what they want to say. So your quieter people shut down and don't share. That goes against what you're trying to do. So if you have 16 or more people, I'd recommend looking into Lean Coffee's bigger brother, which is Open Space. There's this thing called Open Space, and Open Space will scale up to 2,000. I've heard that they've gone as large as 2,000. You could probably do more, but I was just a part of a worldwide 24-hour open space that had, when I was on, it had probably 600 people on, and we were doing just fine. So there are ways to scale if you want to, but it's not Lean Coffee. I will just show you these last two. Sailboat, many of you have probably seen the sailboat. This is a picture of it actually in action. This was in person back in the days pre-COVID. You draw a sailboat and you say, hey, what's the wind, the things that are helping us? What's our goal, where we're trying to get to? What are the anchors that are holding us back? You have people fill out sticky notes and you put them on the image. Let me zoom into this image right here. You can see the agile boat, right? Agile boat right there. And then what you have is all the things that are holding us back over here and all the things that are pushing us forward over there. Why would you do this? Again, you're trying to help your team look at their situation in a different way. You're trying to pivot the way they view the world so they can have more insights. Lastly, I'll say this one, which is timeline. You all already kind of put your one words over there before. What you can do is say, hey, everybody put a sticky note on the timeline, the start of the sprint, the end of the sprint, things that happened. If it was a good thing, make it a green sticky note, put it up high. If it was a bad thing, make it a red sticky note, put it down low. And so you could actually see, boy, we started good, and then that server crashed, and that was down here, and then this happened, and then that happened, and you could actually build an emotional timeline, a feeling of success timeline, a fun timeline. You can do that for your team to quickly assess where did the last sprint go and get a sense of what were the highlights and what were the low lights of the last sprint. There's a couple of methods there. All right, going to move on. I got 20 minutes left. Hopefully you're still engaged and still enjoying the content. Any questions on gathering data before I move on to our next section? We still have three more phases to go.
Isaac, we started collecting a lot of questions in the other feedback section. Maybe we haven't agreed on this. Would you be fine maybe to reply to some questions offline? There are something about the specific tools. And
absolutely. And
fantastic.
How would be the best way to communicate that back to the participants? I can leave that to you maybe to find out how to. I would be happy to write out answers if you could get them back to the participants.
Yeah, and the easiest way I can think of right now is to start conversation in one of the 4 meetup groups, and I raise the question and I'll point it out to you and you can go back. So everyone should receive a notification. We remain there. There's one question on this topic. What can we do if we notice that people don't want to talk about their bad experiences or mistakes?
Very good. That's a great question. And it's one that's really important because it pokes at trust and safety. And so number one, what I would do is I would look to see, is the team feeling safe? A lot of these ideas that we're trying to promote, being open and sharing what's wrong, you're counting on the team feeling safe. If you look at, there's an old thing, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? There's all kinds of different levels that you've got to have safety in. If someone feels like they could lose their job, they could get yelled at, they could get embarrassed, they could get looked down upon, what's going to happen is they're going to keep that information to themselves. And in the event that they're keeping the information to themselves that you need, that's a problem. So number one, if people aren't willing to share what they see as problems, I would want to address safety. I'm going to talk towards the end, but I'll tell you now, there's this thing called the retrospective prime directive. And it says, essentially, I'll paraphrase, whatever we find out, we are going to assume that the people made the best choices they can given the time, their knowledge, and their experience. You're starting out assuming that people did the best they can do. That helps create safety because you're not coming out saying, all right, one of you messed up. And as soon as I find out who messed up, I'm going to go tell my manager and we're going to make sure that ends up in your record. If you said that, no one would share a mistake. And a lot of times in our corporate cultures, mistakes or non-perfection is actually punished. Now, let me say this. If you have repeating mistakes, if you make the same mistake again and again, and you're not learning from it, that is a problem, and that should be addressed. And sometimes that needs to be addressed with disciplinary action and an official write-up. But if it's the first time you've made a mistake, or it was an innocent mistake, or it was, I thought this was going to happen, but instead this happened, and a reasonable person could agree with you, that makes sense that that could have happened, then instead of punishing the mistake, you want to reward the experiment. Most companies don't have that kind of culture yet. So what do you do as a facilitator? You have to create a safe space in your retrospective where people feel comfortable that if they bring up a mistake or an issue or something that went bad, you are not going to write their name down and then go immediately report them. But how do you do that? You're paid as a facilitator to alert your leader if there's a problem. Do it, but do it in the aggregate. So if there's something that comes up in your meeting, hey, I think we might be breaching customer data. Oh, you should tell your manager that. But the way you do it, you should do it by the team raise this in the retrospective. And if the manager says, who did it? You tell me that name, I'm going to fire them so fast. You've got to create safety on the team to say, this is something the team is working on. It was brought up as something they want to fix and get better at. And there's got to be a safe place there. Now, you might be stuck in a culture that doesn't allow that. I'm just going to tell you, do your best to create safety and make sure the team feels safe. And if they do, you'll start seeing more and more people being willing to open up about mistakes or things that go poorly. If you still don't, really celebrate the first person who says, you know what, I didn't quite do this right. I didn't refill the ice tray when I used the last ice cube. Thank you for saying that. We appreciate that. That's, we can learn from that. How can we improve over that? Right? Really celebrate when people start appreciating that safety, and you'll make it easier for the next person, and eventually you'll get someone saying, man, I almost did this. I almost had a near miss where I released 10,000 customer records. Oh, wow, that's really bad. Let's talk about how we can fix that. And then you can fix it, as opposed to, well, let's go tell the boss because you're fired, right? So you want to create that safety so you can find, raise up, and fix those things that are broken. So I hope that helped answer that question. I hope that was helpful there. Any others we want to touch before we go into phase 3? I know these questions are valuable because people are specifically asking for them. Okay, let me go through phase 3, and I'll pick up the pace a little bit so that I want to save at least 5 minutes for Q&A. So I'll pick up the pace just a touch here. I'll just touch on these. Here's our Inspector Gadget. Look at him. He's ready to generate some insights. We've talked about things we should talk about. The last section was helping us pivot our view and look at things that we think we should talk about. Now, let's say you managed to help your team think up 10 things that maybe we could talk about. Don't try to answer all 10. Ask the team, hey, looking at these, which ones do we think we can do something about that could help us improve the most as a team? And then pick a couple, 2 or 3, to pull into this space, the generate insights space. Why? Because you'll be wasting time if you generate insights for every idea you have, including I want more ice cream. If you spend 45 minutes thinking of how to get someone ice cream, and really you could have been talking about how to help the team have more safety or something more productive, then you've got a waste of time there. So bring in the things that the team feels like that's valuable and is going to help them improve in the next iteration. Bring those into generate insights and understand what the causes were. Understand why that thing is happening. Something is happening, whether good or bad, and you want to try to understand it. So help the team dig into it. 2 ways to dig into things are the 5 whys, which I will reveal here. 5 whys are classic, actually from project management. This is just a demo, but essentially you ask why 5 times. Now there's some people who say you can do other things. I like 3 L's. There's ways you can dig down. The point is, don't just take, I am mad because I didn't get my code checked in time. And then say, okay, we have to fix John getting his code checked in time. Let's do that. And then you're focusing on maybe the wrong thing. Okay, why didn't you get your code checked in time? Well, because I had to update the database schema. Well, why did you have to update the database schema? Because the DBA was out and it fell down to me to do it, but I didn't have permissions. Oh, okay, well, we can't change the DBA being out, but you didn't have permissions. Why didn't you have permissions? Well, I didn't have permissions because I'm not considered a secure person. Okay, why aren't you considered a secure person, right? And you follow this trail down until you find something that you go, you know what? If we changed this root cause, the cascading ripple back up would solve maybe the problem that we've identified. So 5 whys draws you down. You can also do, this is a fishbone diagram, same idea, a little bit more detailed. You write out your problem and you say what areas support that problem, right? What areas caused that or attributed to that. So you would put in your general areas. So maybe it's the database admin, maybe it's the code base, maybe it's the tool that we use. So you would put these bigger areas into these areas, and then you would say, okay, what causes that? And you would ask each person to put sticky notes or to write out ideas on what causes them. And then you would say, looking at the larger problem now, which one of these causes can we address in the next iteration? Don't try to fix all of the causes at once. Pick the one that's going to have the greatest return. So here's the problem. These are the areas. Let's pick a cause that we think will actually make a significant difference that we can control in the next iteration. So then as you're closing this section, you want to use hypothesis and experiment. What is that, right? You want to have an idea of your desired outcome, right? What is it that we really want to solve? So then you come up with a hypothesis or an experiment and a way to measure how do we know that worked. This is a great way of saying it. We hypothesize by doing this change, we are going to solve this problem, which will have these benefits as measured by this measurement. This is a great way to take out your 1 or 2 areas that you're going to do work on to take it out of this section. So let's back up for a second. Section 1, you set the stage. You brought people in, you got them comfortable, you broke the ice. Section 2, you talked about what should we talk about, and you helped the team see some of their challenges from a different point of view. From there, you distilled out 2, maybe 3 areas you wanted to go a bit deeper in. Maybe it's 1. 1 is okay too. This section, you identified all the little things that caused that, and hopefully came up with 1 or 2 experiments you could try that you think would provide a better desired outcome. So that's what you want to get to here. You want to come to a good idea of what we could do to fix it. You want to talk about what's possible and your ideal future, and you want to say, let's leave this zone with some action items, something we can actually do, okay? Any questions at that phase? I'm flying through these now, by the way, but I am going to give us 5 minutes. Doggone it. We are going to get it.
Isaac, in 30 seconds, how much time for
Yes.
each phase in a retro?
Fantastic question. And I will say it depends on how much you are allowed. My sad realization is most teams, most businesses only allow 1 hour. So what I would do is I would keep your intro and outro relatively short. I would spend, if you had an hour, let's say I would go, always give yourself a buffer. It always takes time for people to come in the room or connect to Zoom. So always just assume 5 minutes is going to be wasted. So don't count that. So I would say 5 minutes for just wasted people arriving. I would go 5 minutes on your icebreaker, your intro, your first section. So then I would go for your next one trying to analyze. I would probably 10 minutes trying to understand what it is you wanted to talk about, right? What do we want to talk about? Identify that. From there, I would definitely spend 15 to 20 in the next section, which is what can we do? It's really important that you clarify what are the things we can actually, let's go deeper, let's get a deeper understanding and identify a few ways of experiments that we can run, things that we can do. I would spend 15 to 20 minutes there. And then I would probably spend 10 minutes on this next section, which is deciding what to do. So you've got your idea. We're going to run this experiment. Well, now the team needs to enable that. They need to breathe life into that. And so we're going to go through this. It's really helping you come out with, these are the action items that are going to enable the experiment that we decided would improve the conditions we talked about. And so then that, if you do all of that, that's 35, 40, 45 minutes. You're closing, you could close and have a buffer of 10 minutes. I would close and do some, we'll talk about this, do some kind of checkout to make sure the team leaves feeling like they know where they're going and what they're doing next. So we'll talk about checkout. So what I would do is 5 minutes of just lost time, 5, maybe 10 minutes on the intro, 10 minutes, maybe 15 on what are we talking about, 15 to 20 on how do we zero in on the experiments we want to run, 10 minutes on deciding on what to do, and then 10 minutes on your closing, and that'll give you a little bit of a buffer to get out of the meeting and not go over. By the way, don't go over, because these teams, if they're really busy, they are going to be busy and they'll have something else to go to. If you say, we're going to be done in an hour, kind of like what I'm doing here, even if you start running out of time, get to the end, close the session, don't lose the power at the end of the session, cut your content down and get out of there, but don't take the team over. If you take the team over, you're going to get the reputation as someone who doesn't end their meetings on time. And what will happen is people start dropping off of your Zoom because they're like, I got to go to my next meeting. Sorry, boop, and they drop. That's really demoralizing to the team. If you're trying to have a team discussion, people start dropping, you drop the ball in facilitation, work on your time management. So very important to be sharp and on time, which is what I'm going to try to do. Let me talk to you about deciding what to do really quickly. It's this, the team has to own it. Do not tell the team what to do. It's very tempting, especially if you're an experienced programmer, an experienced whatever, if you used to be a manager, it's so easy to say, cool, you think you need to fix the code check-in problem. Let me tell you how to do it. If you do this, if you talk to this person, if you do that, the team won't own the solution. Your goal as facilitator is to help the team own what needs to happen to improve. Help them own it. How do you help them own it? Circles in the soup, you need to know about it. If you don't use this with your teams, this is a tool you need to use. What it basically says is there's a circle where the team has direct influence. Something such as, we need to show up on time to retrospectives. The team can directly influence that. How? By showing up on time to retrospectives, 100% in their control, okay? Indirect influence is something that the team can't actually do, but they can actually influence. For example, we want to have a team lunch, and for that team lunch, we think the manager should buy us pizza. Well, the team can't buy pizza. They don't have a credit card to swipe for pizza, but they can put a request out there for their manager to buy the team pizza. So they can indirectly influence it by requesting the manager take an action. So that's something they have a little less control over. And then there are things such as what tool the company says we have to use. Well, it's great to have a tool discussion, but if the company has mandated a certain tool, I'm sorry, that's beyond your influence. If you don't, okay, maybe you have in your company a way to influence it. The companies I've been at, I've been defined a tool set. They've told me you may use these tools and no others. So it's beyond influence. So there's not a lot of sense in talking about things to change that are all beyond influence. You want to focus on direct influence and then things in the indirect influence. And by the way, as your team matures, you should see this direct influence circle growing larger. The team should become more responsible and more trusted, and maybe they get their own credit card, but the team should grow larger, this circle of direct influence, as they mature as a team. Highly effective teams are capable of handling more and more responsibility as they grow and develop. So you want to see this direct influence grow. Use this to help your team. If they have 5 ideas, tell them, hey, put those sticky notes in one of these circles. What circle is that in? Is it in the outer circle that you can't really change, or is it in the inner circle? Let's not waste our time focusing on the things out here. Let's focus on the things in the middle, also known as the soup, right? So help your team focus on things they can actually control. Other things I want to say here, 3x3 is an exercise. I'll make it visible so you can see it, but let me close this section by saying this. You need agreement on what the team is going to do. What the team is going to do, agreement over here, is really important. If one person says, we really all need to show up on time, and everyone else goes, that's just Bob. He's just like that. He just always wants to show up on time, and no one else agrees, you're not going to see change on the team. The experiment you decide to run, the actions you decide to take, the team needs to agree. If they don't agree 100% with, I will definitely do this, they need to at least say, I maybe don't agree 100%, but I'll support it. I'm willing to go along with my peers on this team to help make this a reality. If you can't get that agreement, you shouldn't commit to that experiment. So you need to work with a team to get agreement. There's a lot of ways and a lot of tools to help a team get to agreement, but I'll leave those for another time. Who is responsible? Don't leave the meeting without one name assigned to each of your action items. Do not make that mistake. Oh, it's okay, so-and-so and so-and-so will do it. Nope. Oh, it's okay, the team will do it. Nope. Oh, it's okay, we'll remember sometime during the sprint. Nope. You make sure each action item, one name. Who is going to be responsible? Doesn't mean they're going to do it, but who is going to come back in our next retrospective and report, here's the experiment we tried, here's the results. One person needs to have that responsibility. That way you'll know that it's going to get done. Okay, I'm just going to overview this and then stop talking. It's this. At the end of the meeting, save some time, do a retro on retro. Ask the team for feedback, just like I'm about to do. By the way, if you have any feedback for me, please put it in the feedback section. Ask for feedback, how you can get better in the retrospective. Leave space to celebrate the things that the team did. Don't just rush out of there. Give the team an opportunity to celebrate. Document, write down things that you're going to do. It is very important that you write your goals down. And then lastly, a checkout, if you have time, it's a great way to say, hey, before you go, let's all, if you have time and you have a small enough team, everybody, let's just real quickly check out. You say what you got out of this. What'd you learn? What'd you like? What'd you take out? What was this experience like for you? And just have people unmute and say, hey, I had a great time today. I learned a lot. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this experiment works out. And then, okay, pick somebody. Who else is going to go next? And they pick somebody else. And that other person goes. That doesn't work if you have 500 people. But if you have a small team, checkouts can be very, very powerful. My last section is the outro, right? I just want to go back to it takes a team. You can't do this by yourself. And I love Inspector Gadget because Inspector Gadget would have been nothing without Penny and Brain. It took a team to deliver the work. So respect your team, listen to your team, make sure you honor them, give them space to make the decisions. Also, connect to other communities, other experts. Let them speak into your life. Here's a retrospective prime directive. I'll just share that just for the fun of it. A couple extras I was going to throw out there just as bonuses for you. So a timer that I used, egg timer, that's what I'm using to keep track of how long this meeting's going. Really useful timer tool. Lean coffee table I talked about. Retrium has some great stuff out there. Retro mat. Oh, if you're a beginning Scrum Master and you want to run a 5-phase retro, but you don't know what activities to do, retromat.org is your friend. In the future, there might be a version 2.0 coming out. It's actually a pet project that I'm thinking of. How do we make this better? So keep your eyes open for that. We might get something there. I talked about liberating structures, more info there. Slido is there. You can go to Slido and use that. Mural, and safety check. I would Google safety check. If you feel like your team isn't safe, I would Google safety check and run that. I'm going to zoom out here and go back over to the feedback section. I love that you guys provided feedback. I love that so many of you stuck with me. We still have 27 people on the call. I so appreciate that. Thank you guys very much. Francesco, you've been watching the chat and the back channel. I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes, sir, to use as you want. I meant to give you 5, but I'm going to give you 2. I'll just say thank you, everybody. I really appreciated talking for an hour and a half. Thank you for listening and being active participants. Francesco.
Wow, I need to catch breath for you. That was impressive. Thank you for going through this. Thank to all the people. Thank you for understanding. There was so much content. It was difficult to pick and choose the questions. Last idea, Isaac, is, and so you can also confirm, will this board remain available to people to go back and check?
Absolutely. I will leave it there. And what I will do is I'll switch it over to view, because I don't want people going in and moving stuff around, but I will leave the board available for you. I'll actually even leave it on comment if you want to leave a comment on the board, but I won't do that for a while. Like I'll do that tomorrow. So yes, this link will still be good. And you can download, by the way, inside the view, you can download sections. So if you wanted to, like, say, take one of these images or something, if you click on a frame, there is a way to download the entire frame. You can export it or download it. So if you need any help getting any of this out of here, screenshots, anything like that, you can reach out to me. LinkedIn is a great way to get a hold of me, by the way, really great way. And I'd be happy to leave this here for people to access. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Isaac. Second question,
Yes.
following up to that is, are you okay to answer the questions on this board? At this point, is probably the most accessible thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally can do that. And are they primarily in the other feedback, or where would I find
Yes.
those questions? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I can do that this afternoon. I'll go in and make the board bigger and put a specific color like black or something, and I'll put my answers out there in black. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Fabulous. Few seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like, looking at the chat, people have enjoyed it. There were a couple of applauses, silent applauses. I know it may sound cheesy, but if you want to unmute yourself, and thank you, Isaac. I think we can share a word for him after he shared 2 million for us.
I would love that. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Isaac. It was brilliant, a lot of stuff. And if you guys are interested, I know Isaac has tons of contents to share. If you're interested, reach out. We may organize a follow-up to this to expand, deep dive in some areas, explore other techniques. Just let us know. And any other topic you're interested in hearing about, let us know. This one I didn't mention in the beginning is a session that came out as a topic, as the one request we got from the last Visual Agilist Ireland, and Isaac was around and said, perfect match in heaven, let's make it happen. So any other requests, please share.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for the info.
My pleasure. Thank you. Great. This has been fun.
One question I have is, like, what happens if team has too many of retros and they're bored about it? Like, how do you engage them?
You should listen to them and help them. Too many retros is a problem of your system. Why they're in so many retros? Because they should really be focused as much as possible on one part of work. If they're having lots of retros just because they're on lots of teams, then it feels disjointed. So I would work on your system a little bit there and try to help them be more focused on, this is the work they do, let's retro the work the team does. So that's, yeah, I would help the team, enable them to have more focus. So, and I'll answer more of those questions too in the board so that we can have them locked down. And reach out to me on LinkedIn. Any more questions you have, I'll happily answer them on LinkedIn or anywhere else. So I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for spending this much time with me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Garcia.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye all. Okay.